This might be the darkest wedding ritual in history. A bride was carried into a room against her will, a door left open on purpose, and witnesses making sure everything happened, not once, but until it was proven. Sounds insane, right? But in ancient Rome, this was normal, and what they were proving will disturb you. But this is only the beginning, because behind that doorway, something even darker may have been waiting. In ancient Rome, marriage was not always about love. It was about control, power, and maintaining family status. For many women, it marked the moment their independence disappeared completely. Some rituals passed down through generations appear harmless on the surface today, but when you look closer, they reveal a much harsher reality. One of the most well-known traditions, the act of carrying a bride across the threshold, is still practiced in modern weddings. Today, it's seen as romantic, but historians believe its origins may tell a very different story. A story where the bride didn't step willingly into her new home because she wasn't supposed to. She was taken. In certain accounts, the bride was physically lifted and carried inside by male relatives or attendants. This act symbolized her complete transfer from one household to another. But some researchers argue it also served another purpose: to remove any visible sign of resistance. Because once she crossed that threshold, everything changed. Inside, preparations would begin, not the kind you might expect from a celebration. Older women, often experienced matrons, would take the bride into a separate room. There, she would be dressed, arranged, and prepared for what came next. Ancient writings suggest that substances may have been used during this process, mixtures intended to calm, sedate, or dull the senses. Whether for ritual reasons or something more troubling is still debated. Then comes one of the most controversial theories. In the early 20th century, archaeological findings from the ancient city of Herculaneum raised disturbing questions. Some interpretations suggest that certain practices may have involved ensuring physical proof of virginity, something that carried enormous social and legal weight in Roman society. Historians continue to argue over these claims. Some believe the evidence has been misinterpreted. Others believe it points to a much darker side of these traditions, one that was never meant to be fully revealed. What is known, however, is that the wedding night itself was not private in the way we understand it today. The boundary between personal and public life was blurred. In some accounts, the door to the couple's room was not completely closed. Family members or witnesses remained nearby, ensuring that the union was completed as expected. Not once, but repeatedly if necessary, because proof mattered, reputation mattered, and failure was not an option. For the bride, this moment was more than symbolic. It was a test, a transformation, a breaking point. These rituals, whether exaggerated over time or grounded in reality, reflect a system where women were expected to submit completely to their new roles. Obedience was not only encouraged, it was enforced. And over time, something else began to happen. The story began to disappear. As centuries passed, later writers, scholars, and religious authorities began reshaping history. Certain details were softened, others were removed entirely. Some texts were lost, some were deliberately destroyed. What remained was a cleaner, more acceptable version of the past, one that focused on order, tradition, and morality, while leaving out the uncomfortable parts. But history has a way of resurfacing. Fragments survive. Clues remain hidden in ruins, writings, and interpretations waiting to be questioned. And not everyone accepted these systems without resistance. There were women in positions of power who began to challenge the structures around them. Figures like Galla Placidia, an empress navigating the complexities of Roman politics, lived in a world shaped by these traditions, yet also contributed to a gradual shift in how power and authority could be exercised. Change didn't happen overnight, but it began. And today, we are left with questions. How much of what we know is true? How much was altered? And how many stories were never told at all? Because sometimes, what history hides is far more powerful than what it reveals.